Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Fandom United. Geo here. This is daily news recap for July 15th. Happy Thursday. I hope all of you are doing well out there. We got some DC, some Marvel, a little bit of Indiana Jones, and a Robert Downey Jr. update. A couple days ago, I was talking about some projects that he was hinting at, and we have an answer. We're going to start with the breaking news of the day. This happened a couple hours ago. It was reported that actor Antonio Banderas has joined Indiana Jones 5. He will be co-starring alongside Harrison Ford. The role is undisclosed, but the news is that the longtime action star is joining Indiana Jones 5. And once I have an update on his role, I will let you guys know. I hope that he gets to do some sort of action. He was one of the better parts of Expendables 3, which was the last time I saw him. He was also in this year's The Hitman's Bodyguard's Wife, which I have not seen. I'll probably catch it on rental. But if you have seen it, how was Antonio Banderas in that movie? Will it add anything to our excitement for Indiana Jones 5? We'll wait and see. But let's go to the news of the day. We are going to start with the Suicide Squad. The first reactions are out via social media, and I have a collection of them for you that I'm going to read one by one. So if you don't want to know anything in regards to the Suicide Squad, have your expectations impacted in any way, then there are timestamps in the description below. You can jump to the next topic. But this first one comes from @Kirsten Acuna, who says, the Suicide Squad is probably the wildest, wackiest, bloodiest comic book movie I've ever seen. Very clear they let James Gunn run wild and not hold back. Definitely gives Harley one of her best scenes, period. What Gunn does great is he makes you care about so many obscure characters, just like in Guardians. The difference is that he's allowed to pull the rug out from under you and kill whoever he pleases because it's not a Disney film. Okay, promising start. Here's the next one from @BrandonDavisBD from comicbook.com. He says, the Suicide Squad is absolutely insane, violent as hell, raunchy, unforgiving. James Gunn is fully unleashed. It's sometimes overwhelming. It has moments of heart, humor, action, emotion, all of it. Relentless. There's nothing like it. Damn. High praise. Let's go to the next one. @Germain Lussier. And this individual says, the Suicide Squad is as funny, irreverent, and violent as promised. What I liked best, though, was its heart. Gunn really balances the silly and the serious in a way that the two complement each other really well. I dug it. Also, King Shark rules. Next one comes from @Iceman__34. This person says, the Suicide Squad is a cosmic mix of action of the 90s combined with exploitation films of the 70s. It's hyper violent, but it knows that it is. It is a little bit Tarantino, definitely a little bit Michael Mann. It's kind of a cosmic gumbo. It almost moves to the beat of jazz. So praising the pacing of the movie. Very cool. Next one, @Eric Davis says, I had the best time watching the Suicide Squad. It is a swing for the fences kind of comic book movie, and I love that. It's big, bold, visually stunning, and you will see James Gunn's horror roots splattered all over this thing. It's violent, but hilarious. Angry, but also very sweet. Idris Elba's Bloodsport and David Dastmalchian's Polka Dot Man are major standouts for me. Bloodsport has the coolest weapons, by the way. I also thought this was the best we've seen of Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. Her journey in this film is actually quite lovely and quite bloody. Getting a lot of praise from Harley Quinn in these reactions. Love it. And this last one from @Sean_O'Connell, who I had the pleasure of interviewing on this channel. You can check that out. It's on the main page. He says, I can tell you that at Suicide Squad WB is totally insane and insanely cool. It's ballsy, unpredictable, funny, incredibly violent, but alive with the uncompromised vision of a gonzo auteur at James Gunn. Suddenly, I Love Rats, must see and at IMAX opening weekend. Also, this is the best use of DC villains. Mind you, there aren't a lot of predecessors, but this is what a Suicide Squad WB needs to be. It's pure, unfiltered, James Gunn, and it's eye popping. Literally eye popping. I mean, it's R rated, so that wouldn't be far fetched. But very promising reactions coming from a lot of people on social media, which is a welcoming one for any DC fans out there, but any comic book fans as well. Along with the reactions are several new images from a behind the scenes video. First one on the top left shows Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, looks like being interrogated, and looks like that guy is about to see his worst nightmare, because this probably leads into that sequence that's been hyped up regarding Harley Quinn. The next one, top right, is our first look at live action Calendar Man, played by Sean Gunn, the brother of director James Gunn, and also the villain Double Down, who's a Flash villain. So we could see some cameos, appearances of other villains in the DC universe. And then bottom left, we have a shot of John Cena's Peacemaker character. He looks defeated. He looks beaten down. I'm very curious about John Cena's Peacemaker because of the fact that HBO Max greenlit a Peacemaker solo series based on a vague description from James Gunn. And on the bottom right, we see a figure surrendering to looks like military forces. I get the feeling this takes place early on. I remember seeing footage of Captain Boomerang and Harley Quinn. This is when she's firing the rocket. It looks like whatever Suicide Squad we're going to see in the opening sequence will fail, which means Viola Davis will have to activate a secondary squad, probably bringing in Idris Elba's Bloodsport. So, very encouraging first reactions for the Suicide Squad, and also images on top of that. You guys let me know your thoughts on this. Does it change your excitement for the movie? If you were skeptical, does this do anything for you? Let me know your thoughts down below. Let's stick with James Gunn. He talked about the differences between Marvel and DC while promoting the movie, and he had this to say. The Marvel Universe has always been a little more cohesive, and DC has always had more great single runs. They had The Dark Knight Returns, they had Watchmen, they had Killing Joke, they had Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. The fact that they did Joker, which is a totally different type of movie, that to me is cool. I'm very excited about Matt's movie, The Batman from Matt Reeves. They're getting some really good filmmakers involved. They're always going to be hit or miss. I just don't want them to get boring. And honestly, that's probably the best thing that DC has going for them, is that their movies are so different from each other. You got James Gunn's Suicide Squad. You got Matt Reeves' The Batman. You have Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam. And then you're going to have Andy Muschietti's The Flash. Based on what we've seen, all of those movies look completely different from one another, which is at the very least you could ask for, any fan could ask for, because what you don't want is getting something that feels more of the same, something that's, a movie that plays it safe. And to me, that's boring. And it sounds like James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, based on what we just read, is not going to be a movie that plays it safe. That's one of the things that Warner Brothers has working for them. They're not owned by a parent company that's very family friendly. DC, by its nature, is darker than Marvel. So you can afford to be a little more grounded, a little more gritty, a little more violent, instead of trying to copy the other universe, which is what a lot of us fans are pissed off about. Just do your thing. Be DC. But anyways, going off topic here, let's continue. Speaking of DC, we have an update from actor Colin Farrell. In the video, he talks about the lengthy production due to COVID, Batman catching COVID, and how many scenes he's going to be in the movie next year. So let's listen.
The COVID began to grip the world while we were shooting, and I left London in March, and we were stood down for 4 or 5 months, and then we went back, and then obviously Robert got sick, and that was like, fucking Batman has COVID.
Exactly.
Batman has COVID. It's just like, fucking hell. And so, but we finished it after, I think they were probably from first turnover to last cut was probably 12 or 14 months to shoot. Wow. And he's cutting it together now. I haven't heard sight nor sound of him. I don't know what he's up to, but I know he's deep into it. And I'm only in it for 5 or 6 scenes, so I can't wait to see the film because it won't be ruined by my presence.
I guarantee
things are, totally. Like, really, it's a freebie for me. I'll get a little bit uncomfortable for the fucking 9 minutes I have, and then the rest of it, I cannot wait to see how he brought this world to life, because the sets were extraordinary, the production design extraordinary, and his use of music and sound will be extraordinary. And as you said, the cast from all of them, Robert to Zoe to extraordinary cast.
Well, that was a little bit of the interview there. You can go to their Patreon page and check out the rest at Happy, Sad, Confused. But from what we learned is that it was a 12 to 14 month shoot, which, for comparison, Marvel shot Avengers Infinity War and Endgame back to back, and that was about a 9-month. So COVID really messed up the Batman production. It's been well documented. But the fact that Colin Farrell's Oswald Cobblepot is only going to be in 5 or 6 scenes, that makes sense, right? Matt Reeves talked about this trilogy starting off as an origins, not just for Batman, but for the villains as well. When we see them first, they won't be the traditional villains that we've come to love in the comics and in the animated shows and the movies. Case in point, Paul Dano's Riddler. He looks nothing like the Riddler that we know and love in the comics, but there are inspirations, and he will become that version of the character. So very exciting stuff, very informative. Colin Farrell, I love how he talks and presents himself. That's, man, so down to earth. Speaking of Batman, we have new unseen images of Ben Affleck's Batman via the production designer, Patrick Tatopoulos. And on social media, he posted these images. There was a colored one to the left and a black and white one to the right. And on social media, he said, "Until I can start showing the new things I have been working on, I'll bring back some good old stuff that I am still proud of. That Batmobile will always be a benchmark in my career." And it was a great Batmobile. I don't care what anybody says. I remember the first time we saw the images of Ben Affleck's Batman in costume with the Batmobile. Everyone was freaking out, starting to become a believer of Ben Affleck's Batman. Remember how much hate he got early on when the casting announcement first happened? But going back to his social media post, Patrick's, "I can't start showing the new things I have been working on." I'm curious if he's involved in The Flash in any way. I don't think so, but that would be pretty cool if he was brought in because he was so heavily involved with Ben Affleck's Batman. We know Ben Affleck's Batman will be in the Flash movie, so it remains to be seen. But one thing I did want to quickly bring up is how exciting of a time it is if you're a fan of the DC films. All the Warner Brothers drama aside, okay, we know they don't deserve this IP, but it looks like we're getting some really high quality content, okay? First off, the fact that we got Zack Snyder's Justice League, something we never thought would happen, is just a blessing. It's a gift that keeps on giving. I will forever cherish it. From what we're hearing about James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, that could be 2 hits in a row, big hits in a row in the same year. Then, of course, you got Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam. You know that movie's going to make money. Dwayne Johnson, his social media page alone is a marketing machine, and he's been hyping that movie up. And we've all been waiting for 8, 9, 10 years to see Black Adam, and he's finally on the way. And then, of course, we just heard Colin Farrell talk about the Batman and Matt Reeves. Can't wait to see that one. It's DC glory, baby. And whether you're Team DC, Team Marvel, here we're a fan of both. You got to be happy that we're finally getting to that point where DC and Marvel are both producing these awesome movies and TV shows on streaming for us fans. Okay, we're bathing in all of it. Okay, I'm a fan of Marvel and DC just like you guys are. Hopefully you guys are open to both. Clearly by my background, I'm a little more DC than I am Marvel. About, I would say, 65-35. But I'm still a fan of both. And it's a great time. Let's get to some Marvel talk here. Kevin Feige. Okay. Black Widow, this will be a spoiler. So if you haven't seen Black Widow, timestamps below, skip forward, but don't leave, please. But if you don't care, let's talk about Black Widow. Some supporting characters may have a future in the MCU, according to Kevin Feige himself. This is what he had to say in a recent interview. It is always the intention that when characters come in and great actors come into the universe, if we have a great time with them, the audience did, that you always want to see them again. I think it is a safe bet that we definitely want to happen. And he's talking about these 2 characters, Rachel Weisz's Melina and David Harbour's Red Guardian. It's a safe bet we will see them again in the MCU. Now, when? That's a huge question. We know Yelena is going to be in Hawkeye, right? After that, who's to say? Maybe Secret Wars? Maybe General Talos and Nick Fury need some help, so they recruit those 2. But I'm excited to see Red Guardian for sure. Rachel Weisz, she's wonderful, okay? She's great. But as far as the character goes, she didn't really move the needle that much for me. In fact, I don't even think I talked about her in my non-spoiler review, which is on the channel. You can check out. But regardless, who's to say that wherever she ends up next, she isn't given more to work with, okay? I mean, the Black Widow solo movie, okay, Yelena took a huge chunk of the spotlight in that movie. There was only so much to go around, so we'll wait and see. I'm definitely open to seeing both of them return on the big screen or the streaming, wherever they end up. Speaking of streaming, let's talk Don Cheadle and Armor Wars, a series I'm definitely looking forward to. I want to see War Machine, and I definitely want to see Justin Hammer, played by Sam Rockwell. But here's what Don Cheadle had to say. It's not much, but he did talk about what drew him to this series, besides money. And he says, what's amazing is that what's to come is a whole other level. This will be an opportunity for the first time to really see who he is and what makes him tick. Now, if Loki, WandaVision, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier are any indication, he ain't lying when he says Armor Wars will be a whole other level. And what I'm especially looking forward to seeing is a James Rhodey, that lives in a world without Tony Stark, right? I mean, because a lot of his on-screen time is with Tony Stark, right? The 2 are buddies. The two are comrades. Okay, you have War Machine and Iron Man. But how does Rhodey adapt to a world without a Tony Stark? Where does he go from there? Okay, like he has a suit, it's all powerful, but Kevin Feige talked about what if Stark Tech ended up in the wrong hands? And the fact that Don Cheadle's finally getting a leading role in his own series, hell yeah, sign me up. You guys let me know your thoughts on Armor Wars. And our last topic, speaking of Robert Downey Jr., his next project has officially been announced. Remember, this goes back a couple of days, I think back to Monday, when I talked about Robert Downey Jr. hinting at some exciting announcements. We finally have it, and it is in the form of an HBO series he will be co-starring in. The report from Deadline reads, Downey will co-star in The Sympathizer, a drama series based on Viet Thanh Nguyen's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel. The novel is an espionage thriller and cross-culture satire about the struggles of a half-French, half-Vietnamese communist spy during the final days of the Vietnam War and his resulting exile in the United States. The series is described as a blistering exploration of identity and America, a gripping spy novel, and a powerful story of love and friendship. Furthermore, the report states, after weighing several offers, sources say what made this role so appealing, besides an incredible story, was the opportunity to show his, Robert Downey Jr.'s, range as an actor. According to insiders, he is set to play multiple supporting roles as the main antagonist, all of whom represent a different arm of American establishment, including an up-and-coming Orange County congressman, a CIA agent, and a Hollywood film director, among others. Wow. So this kind of reminds me, and I keep bringing it up, but Tropic Thunder, right? The way Robert Downey Jr. showed incredible range as an actor, and looks like it's going to be taken to another level. Maybe not as mainstream or, as blockbuster-ish, but still, this is Robert Downey Jr. taking on not just anything, but a role where he can really show his range. I sense an Emmy nomination coming for him on top of 2 Oscar nominations. This is an actor who is so much more than Tony Stark Iron Man. He has so much more to offer. His career is far from over, and I, for one, can't wait to see what he does in this series. Well, that's going to do it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on Daily News Recap for July 15th. This was a fun show, a lot of topics, and it's always more exciting the more topics we have to discuss. Before I go, I will plug a few videos. Like I mentioned, my Black Widow review is currently on the channel. I'd appreciate if you guys check that out. I also have my review for The Tomorrow War, the Chris Pratt Amazon Prime sci-fi action. It is getting a sequel, and I can't wait for that. This movie surprised me. It's a fun popcorn flick. I highly recommend you guys check it out. And again, appreciate everything you guys do, all the subscriptions, the thumbs up. I appreciate a like. And like I said, as long as there's enough topics Monday through Friday, I will do these daily news recaps. It's a fun time for me, and I enjoy the engagement. You guys, I enjoy the interactions. I appreciate it. Until tomorrow, you guys take care.